So hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpStack Community Circle. This is the third one so far. We are really excited, really happy seeing all of you here. And we literally listened to your feedback that you provided in the surveys in the last circle events. So thank you for that. This is why we are bringing this topic to you, how the UX, UI designer think in regards to team communication between design and engineering teams. We have an amazing speaker prepared for you, Paul Axente, or Paul, and I'm just going to present him in a minute. But before we go with this, I just want to say hi. I am Diana, community manager, and I will be guiding you today through this workshop together with my partner, Daniel, the head of community.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everybody's muted. Hey.
Yeah. So one of the things that we would like to ask you guys, stay muted till the Q&A session, okay? So that Paul can just clearly present all the presentation. So this is not the traditional webinar in the way that we have only 10 to 15 minutes for the presentation, and all the other section will be us communicating together and having the Q&A session, which will be around 20 to 30 minutes, depending how many questions you guys have. We already have a few questions by you, which you simply ask during the registration form. But all of you, please keep those questions till the end, okay? So if you have anything in the mind, maybe make a note or just keep it till the end, and we will come back to it. Before we also get into this, the one single thing, the last one that I really want to say is that please feel welcome to literally share and ask anything you want in this Q&A session, because we want to hear and engage more with you, but at the same time, this section will not be shared online. So you can see that the event is being recorded, but we will share only the presentation part, which means that the Q&A session is just for you, and there are no silly and wrong questions out here, okay? So that's it for now. Now meet Paul Axente. He is an UI UX designer and head of user experience and UX mentor. He is living with his family in Pennsylvania, and he is also the founder of UX City, which is a meta group for developers, UX, UI designers, and QAs to simply share their stories and, well, literally reshape the UX community. So currently, he's working as the head of user experience at Big Interview, and he recently started an apprenticeship in game design, which is his passion. Welcome, Paul. Really happy having you here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro. Let me share my screen. Hope it works, because I always get it wrong. Right. And this one. Cool. A couple of things before I jump starting. Yeah. I'm new to Canva, so thanks for bringing this topic up, because it's really something that I'm really passionate about in terms of teamwork, right? My background as I don't consider myself like a designer first, because I started as a developer, and then I made a transition to design in UX. Because I couldn't deal with JavaScript back when Angular and React were starting to become more prominent, mainly because I didn't really understood it, so it was easier for me to switch to UX. But over the years and throughout either the contracting jobs and the companies that I was hired on at, one thing was always like the crux of everything, and it was like teamwork and communication between UX, design, and the engineering teams. And there's a couple of things, I'll jump into it when we get there, but it has been always seen for most of the part like team A versus team B, and it's not necessarily like that. It's more just that there's a lot of things that go on in engineering and a lot of things that go on in design, and people don't see the full picture. And everybody thinks that they have the single source of truth. My son arrived yelling, everything is under control. So cool. This is the agenda. I'll try to keep it short because I don't really like long conversations. I do have the tendency of just restating a couple of things over and over again. It's something that I do. I'll try to be mindful of it. So yeah. I'll go into the mythos of UX and design, teamwork that makes the dream work, what to keep in mind when building teams and working with multidisciplinary teams, and then a couple of notes and Q&A. Depending where you are or what you do, as a designer is really weird because every company has different roles. I think for coming from engineering, something that is rarely such a big issue is the job description or the requirements, because most of the time JavaScript or Node or C+ or React, the languages are pretty well defined. So there's a general understanding of what you're supposed to do. Although it might not be 100% clear, it's pretty well defined. When someone says, I'm a React developer, you pretty much know what that is. But when someone says, I'm a UX designer, you have no idea what that is. Because UX as a discipline has a description. So if you take it by the book, there's a definition. I won't go into it because it's long, it's fluffy, and it sounds really nice, and everybody sells it. But if I look back in like 15 years of my experience, I never had a UX job that was by the book. It's always been some sort of hybrid based on what was needed. Either if it was wireframe, prototypes, high fidelity, research, or stuff like that, but it was never that by the book. So when you get hired as a UX designer, sometimes you end up doing high fidelity. Sometimes you end up doing research or wireframes or prototypes. So depending on the company you're working with and the job you need to do, things might be different. And then it starts creating a ton of little interesting problems, or let's say snowballing effects, which go down the hill, frustration grows, and then people start doing funny things. I've put here with asterisks like research, because that's a monster of itself. And if you ask me, you actually be split into a shit ton of disciplines and not just one. But it's funny because, yeah, this is, sorry about that. Give me a second.
All good. That's guys, the life of remote work. Natural stuff happens, right?
I thought it was my kid. I was happy to hear it was his.
Yeah, we're all aware of those things. So
I have some party boys in my co-working space. My conference room near me, so they're playing games from Dragon since 12, and they're eating pizza and drinking beer. So I'm trying to work. I'm trying to be productive today.
yeah, we all have some things. I had some dogs barking just not a few minutes ago too. This is how it feels to work remotely. We have challenges and we have pluses, right? And this is natural too. I mean, I think we keep forgetting about it in the office work, that these things come naturally, the life itself and the family life.
All is fine. He was not allowed to join the bathroom with his mom. Anyway, cool. Where was I? Okay. Now it took me out of the groove. So depending on the company, that was what I was saying, you might end up with different titles, different roles, and different things that you need to do. And that's mainly because if you're in an outsourcing company, you want to hire people, right? So if you're putting, I need a visual designer, some people won't apply because they want to do UX. So then you put UI UX, you put UX, and then you have this monstrous role of just trying to hire people and get people into teams without necessarily being aligned to what you need to do, and then people not being aligned with what they need to do. One example from my one of my jobs was back in 2015. I was hired as a senior UX designer to a company, and then the first thing I was assigned to do when I joined the company was like, yo, you put in the CV that you know HTML and CSS and you have front and background, right? So we'll assign you to this project with the Telegraph from the newspaper from the UK, and you'll pretty much do some code there, but you also have the opportunity to push the client, to push your design ideas. No one gave a damn about my design ideas, but that was how the project was sold. That was how the team was set up, right? So that's one little thing there. And these types of things start to create frustration for the people that are working in those positions. Also frustration for the people that work in support to those positions and the teams around them, because you might end up with someone that is put into a role that's not necessarily a good fit, but that's how it's been set up. And then they don't have either the right experience or the necessary experience. And there's also a ton, I'm sure there's in engineering there's as well, but I'm not as familiar. But in design, there's also a lot of job descriptions where you need to do different things like code or things that you might not have the experience or might not have been exposed to. But at the end of the day, you need to put food on the table, so you accept that job. And then you're stuck into a position that you know half design, but I need to code stuff now. So that's the mythos of UX. It's nice. I would love for UX to be in its true form everywhere, but in reality, it's bits and pieces of UX around projects and around various companies. And this is the first thing that is pretty much the first thing that starts to make a crack in the wall when it comes to communication and teamwork, because it creates frustration. All right. So in terms of design, regardless what we were hired to do or how the company describes the role, as designers or as UX designers, let's say, the job pretty much is to come up with a solution to a problem that meets product requirements, takes into consideration technical constraints, and it's achieving business objectives. Which means, as a designer, I need to talk with the tech people to understand what's feasible and what's not. With product, to understand what we need from product side, from business, what are the business objectives, so that when I come up with the wireframe, with the prototype, or with the design, everybody is on the same page and everybody is happy with the results. So I don't have to have a conversation that, oh, this can be built, but in half a year, because I made it fancy and the engineering team doesn't have the requirement, doesn't have the capabilities at that point to build that. Or I made a design so fancy, but it's no good for business. Looks nice, works nice, but it doesn't achieve any business value. So designers really need to be in that sweet spot. And I think this is the thing that pretty much makes a difference when you're working with a designer that doesn't create a lot of friction, right? Because if the design team or the designer is taking into consideration everybody's opinions, then ideally things move forward slowly. But when design is being made with one specific use case in mind for one specific demographic, then a lot of questions start to pop up, and then there's conversation and there's a lot of discussion regarding things that don't go really well. So in terms of this, just regardless the designers you're working with and the people you're working with, I think there are general rules that apply, and there are things to keep in mind in terms of make sure that everybody's on the same page when we talk about outcomes, right? If we need to design something, develop something, or write something, everybody who has a saying into that needs to be aware that we're set up to do task A. We're going to do it because A, B, C, D, and then everybody's got to go do their thing. So when you present the prototype, no one's left wondering like, oh, this is the first time I hear about this. Oh, I never thought about it. So there should be a real emphasis on over communicating as early as possible. And then for designers, what's something that like plagued me for a while back when I started is I suffered a lot from the expert syndrome. And what I mean by that, the less experience that I had, the more experience I thought I had. So what that meant was that I would take a design task, I would go into my little corner and I would design it the best of my abilities. I would make the best design ever, to put it on Dribble, on Behance, to show it to the world and pretty much take all those likes. But those designs didn't necessarily translate well to engineering or to product or to business. Now they like them because they were beautiful designs, but in terms of function and utility, there was rarely some. So I ended up wasting a lot of time because I was focused to make myself and my work look well, while not taking into consideration everything, all the things. And I can remember a lot of instances where I designed a lot of stuff and there were things that just, they seem small, but they required a ton of rework on the back end, reworking components on the front end, things that early in my career I couldn't really understand. And there were really interesting conversations with the engineering teams back then where names have been dropped and name calling has been made. And barricades were lifted. And it wasn't fun. I don't want that. My takeaway from that is just share them as early as possible, bring the engineering team, bring the product team, bring users into it, so that you get feedback as soon as possible. And then make sure you cover edge cases. I've seen a lot of instances where, and I also start with this, where it's easier to focus on what's simple and what's in front of you. But most of the time, there's a lot of hidden paths behind every corner. So as designers, we should really start focusing and showing, and when we talk about designs, to bring in user flows, information architecture maps, so that you don't have to plot through 50 pages of Figma or Sketch just to see an end-to-end flow for a design. Easier to do it in a user flow or information architecture map, whichever term might be suitable for that. And then utilize as many tools as possible that help you facilitate communication, from ad hoc meetings, documentation, Zoom, Figma, Notion, Asana, Miro, Change, Logify, stuff like that. Something that really worked wonders for my design team at Big Interview right now is, as we design things on a daily basis, we keep a change log. And this has heavily been borrowed from the engineering Git flow mindset or framework, and we introduced that to our workflow, because we need to understand what we changed among ourselves, and then when we tell the engineering team or to the product team, like, hey, we need to make these changes to these screens, and we don't send like 5 screens and then you put pictures side by side trying to like spot the difference, but we're like, this is the change log. That's why we changed it. It's out there. You can share it with clients, with users, into what's new product updates to the app. This really worked wonders. But as a baseline to all of this, is basically communication, like making sure that as designers we communicate properly. But if you have a designer that is not necessarily a good team player, then you can try to nudge and try to hop on that side of the pond, just understand what happens and how to work with that. And at the end of the day, there's something that I learned at Fortune, where I was working with a lot of difficult people, is everybody's got their own plans, their own things to do. And you got to ask yourself, is this the hill that I want to die on? And sometimes it's worth not doing nothing. But in terms of the end note, it's like, everybody makes mistakes and everybody's trying to do their best job ever. Now, we might not necessarily always get it, but something that I urge you to take into account is early designers, if they don't have a senior designer assigned to them or working with them or a mentor, they are the most exposed to a lot of stuff, and this goes similar to developers as well. I don't want to downplay it in any way or capacity, but what I've noticed through my experience with outsourcing is that you'll end up with junior designers have 50% assigned to a project or assigned alone on a project, while you rarely end up with a junior developer assigned solely to go on a project. And this is where most of the stuff, the things like started to crack and create problems when you have people that are not prepared, they are not supported, put into positions that they are in no situations to win them. And then again, there's also the other thing about this expert syndrome, and in design, there's a lot of stuff like this, where I'm a designer, I know what users want, I know what's best for them, so I'll do that, you shut up and let me do it and just develop it. So there's that. There's not much you can do about it except just communicating and escalating it. But if that happens, it means that you have someone in your team that's not willing to play ball, let's say. And this pretty much sums it up. Sorry for the yelling. Should I keep the presentation up or should I stop it?
Yes, let's keep it up. Thank you, Paul. Give thanks everyone to Paul. Thanks a lot. It was really nice presentation.
Thanks
Nice.
a lot.
Thank you, Paul.
Good one, man.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
If you don't have any more questions, I think we can close this presentation and Q&A. Thank you, Paul, for chatting with us and sharing your experiences and stories. Thank you all for being present and asking questions and being awesome.
Thank you, everyone. It was amazing. Good
Paul.
questions.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.